Hi there, it's Carl Irwin, the Common Magician, and I've got something interesting to discuss with you here. Not really a trick or anything, but we're going to discuss indexes. I can't imagine why, but we're going to talk about indexes. We've talked about indexes before, and I'm going to talk about a few different indexes. I'm going to show you one index, not the one you're thinking of, but I'll show you another one. But I want to talk about the one you're thinking of. That's not necessarily to just jump on the bandwagon. It's because it's just relevant conversation. You have the Lloyd Barnes Dex product that is out, which is a card index for an entire deck of cards in one pocket. And when he started talking about that, I thought it was very fascinating and it was very interesting. I knew right away it's not something that I would use because no matter how well organized it was going to be, it was going to be too complex for what I do. You know, it's just not, I wouldn't carry that around. But I was still fascinated by it, and I couldn't wait for it to come out just so I could see the reviews and maybe get a glimpse of it if they were ever going to show it. Apparently he's shown it now. I hope he didn't do that because of the controversy. He should have just, I think, first of all, I don't think it would have been a big deal to show it. I think there's actually an advantage to showing the product and saying, this is what I'm selling. And to have it done right, well, the way they designed, you really need to buy theirs. Even if you tried to mock up your own, you could make up your own design that would suit you very well, but this is ours and it's prefabricated and you get what you pay for. I think that's a good marketing scheme, but that's just the way I think, right? So they decided not to show it or not have reviewers. They didn't allow reviewers to show it. But then he showed it because of the controversy surrounding unbiased Magic Reviews, the channel. And whatever about the channel, it's not a channel I watch personally. When I watch reviews, I usually, I like most people, I just look at David at Magic Orthodoxy and call it a day, or I look on some of the forums every now and then and see things pop up. I don't buy a lot of magic anyway. I really don't. I like to use a lot of old methods from books or old videos, or lectures. I mean, ideas from lectures are really economical in terms of spending your money on magic. But that's where I kind of spend my time, is on older principles, dressing them up, reusing them, recycling them, giving them relevance. That's what I like to do on this channel. And I particularly like methods that are very accessible because, again, I don't have a lot of time to put into doing something complex and new and innovative that might be, truly innovative. So indexes aren't my thing, but I've covered indexes before, and we looked at the Q5 a while back, and I just demonstrated making a couple of these, and I did talk about indexing a deck of cards, or at least half of a deck of cards, between a couple of indexes. We'll come back to that. I do want to point one thing out, though, in this controversy that I just find interesting, and it has nothing to do with the personalities and their conclusions about one another. But I will make this criticism about unbiased magic reviews. The very premise of the channel is that he is unbiased in his review. Fine. Makes sense. But he takes it a step further in essentially concluding the way he talks that all other reviewers are biased. Those particularly, specifically, reviewers that get a product sent to them. That, by the word he used in the video he did on this, was that they are compromised. And I just want to point out, anybody that watches my channel, I would encourage you to think a little more deeply than that, because that's a non sequitur. That's a non sequitur. One thing does not lead to the other. Having a product provided to a reviewer does not in and of itself compromise them, nor does not having something gifted to a person eradicate the possibility of bias. That is just not a conclusion anybody should reach. In fact, this sort of arrangement happens all the time. The assumption there is that the presence of some sort of compensation creates compromise, but that is entirely untrue in most cases. For example, if you would examine something like, an art or a music adjudication where participants have to pay an entry fee for adjudication, which is pretty typical. And then those fees are then used in turn to compensate judges. That does not indicate the presence of compromise at all. There is no logical conclusion to go from one place to the other. On the contrary, what is present there is a submission through fee or through loss to a fair adjudication, right? So I understand the pseudological premise of this, that if someone provides a product to a reviewer, that they would potentially inspire through the gifting of the item a good review. But that should not be an automatic conclusion. You need far more evidence to reach that conclusion. It doesn't connect. Logically, it doesn't connect. It's fallacious to suggest it, right? Again, because time and again, that's essentially how adjudications work more often than not. So I just want to point that out. Don't buy that. I think that's an error on his part. As far as, Lloyd Barnes goes, I think he's very generous. I don't have any stake in him. I don't buy his stuff. I often find that a lot of the things he shares on his channel demonstrate a very serious investment in setup and gimmickry that is very necessary for doing very amazing feats. So there's that. I mean, the more you invest in the absurdity of the setup, the better the payoff in the absurdity of the effect, right? But that's kind of beyond the pale for me. That's not the kind of thing that I do. So it's very suitable for street magic folks that invest in that kind of magic, right? The very elaborate setup creates a very elaborate effect, which creates a very good response. And there's a lot of that for him. So I appreciate what he does. I don't find it particularly useful for me, but it's very generous and very innovative, the stuff that he puts out there. The price for the index, I mean, he can charge whatever he wants for it. You are buying a product. So, I don't know that the price is too steep for someone that would use something like that. If you're going to really use it, seems like, other things cost that much. If I had made it and I had it, I don't know how much it would cost for me to produce something like that. I'm the kind of guy that would sell a tutorial about how to make something yourself and sell it for $10. That's kind of my way of doing things. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Don't fall for fallacious arguments. That's all I'm saying in it. As you're looking at the controversy, I would encourage everybody to just kind of pay attention to what people are saying and see if what they're saying holds water before you just jump on bandwagons and get really mean, and direct about stuff. So that's one thing. I will say this: the jerks, and I gave one thing to the jerks one time, and it was part of his little program. Tell everybody the worst thing about this. And at that time, there'd only been one other magician that had given the jerks something to review, to tell them the worst thing about it. That was Nate Staniforth. Had given a lecture series to him, and he did that. I was only the second person after a large amount of time. No one really wanted to do that sort of thing. But I played the game. I said, here, I've got something I'm selling for $1, right? The $1 Torn and Restored. Why don't you tell everybody the worst thing about this? Because my feeling was, man, this is free. This is free advertising, He'll tell everybody the worst thing about it, but it's $1. I mean, how bad can it be, right? And that ended up working very well, and I got some name recognition and some sales off of it. But that's the only time I ever gave anything to him. But the Jerks has reviewed other things. He's covered me in his love letters newsletters for a couple of different products, and he also mentioned me once on the website, on the blog, for YouTube channels that he watches. And the basic premise of his comments were that he doesn't watch magic YouTube channels, that he finds most of them unwatchable. but he does watch 2 with some occasion. 1 was mine, just because he finds me interesting and fascinating. Even though he wouldn't do the kind of magic that I do, he kind of favors more of the elaborate stuff, not the things that we talk about. But he kind of looks at this channel, and I think he rightly articulated that at this place we talk about things without trying to without trying to feed any kind of watcher base, right? This is not an influence channel. I'm not an influencer. I'm not influencing people, which is really not, that's not really what influencers do. Influencers actually gain a following, and then they try to satisfy the following with every video they put out, and I don't do that. I just frankly tell you what's on my mind, and he thought that was refreshing, so he liked the channel. And the only other channel he said that he would frequent with some occasion is Unbiased Magic Reviews, and for that reason, because apparently he just kind of says what's on his mind and covers what's on his mind, and he's very frank about everything, so there's that too. So anyway, I'm not like picking a side or anything. I'm just saying be careful about what people are saying, and don't get caught up in saying harsh things to people. We just covered people saying harsh things on this. It's just nonsense. Don't do it. Don't. You're better. You're all better than that. I hope you're all better than that. But anyway, let's talk about indexes. I would never use that index, not because I think there's anything wrong with the product. I just wouldn't do that kind of magic because I wouldn't carry that kind of item. I would hardly ever carry this kind of index. But I'm on this channel, I'm of the feeling that there's nothing wrong with a layer of equivocate that gets you 10 miles ahead. So what I would be more likely to do, and I do, and I have done using another kind of index we'll talk about in a minute, is use a layer of equivocate to get you down to the face cards, right? Picture cards, royals, jacks, queens, kings, because now you have 12 cards and you have just the right number of slots in a Q5. So a simple matter of saying, you think of a box of cards, what do you want to remove? The number cards or the picture cards, and you're all the way there, right? You force down the picture cards, and now with 3 tiers in a Q5 or something like it. This is an Index Express, which is, I believe, is shown. It's just a Q5 for billets. And I have one of these, and I hardly ever use it, which is kind of the point, right? I wouldn't buy that because I bought things that I don't use. That's kind of it, right? You've got 3 tiers in this style, and you have 4 slots per tier. Well, you've got Jack, Queen, King, and 4 suits. So bam, you're there. And this is more my speed because I'm not going to mess this up. There's just not a lot to get hung up on, right? You have, in my case, is Spade, Heart, Club, Diamond, Jack, Queen, King. You're going to hit it. So I'm more likely to do something like that. And, what do you do in a circumstance, just as an idea, what do you do in a circumstance where you want to ring in more than one time, right? But you only have face cards. Well, there is arbitrary justification, which is a term that I've coined when you rely on previous decisions that have been made in an arbitrary way to kind of paint the spectator into an unseen corner without them realizing that they're kind of stuck, right, in their situation. So the way this works is that you have your initial equivocate, you get it down to picture cards, you go through the other selection process, you do an effect from a thought of cards, something they've thought of procedurally, and then as you go to another effect, you say, well, you were talking about jacks, queens, kings before. Name another one, right? You just rely on the second tier, or rather the first tier of decision making, and then you carry on. You just go back to that point. Don't make an issue of it. Just that's where you start at. A minute ago, you mentioned jacks and kings and of course other suits. But name another value, and now they're pigeonholed, right? They're painted in. They're stuck based on a decision that they've already made. So at the end of it, you could have maybe 2 or 3 revelations that all rely on that first level of equivocate. And with the separation of effects and the separation of time and conversation, nobody's the wiser on that. But that's a way to limit what you carry, and still seem to have a great deal of freedom in thought of cards. And you can do this where you do a trick for somebody, and then you go to somebody else, and you say, he said picture cards before, could you name another one? You're really doing a trick for two people where both are seeing what's going on, but you're relying on information that's already been provided that narrowed down your selection. Nobody sees through this. It's just take advantage of decisions that they made, and don't start over again from scratch. Just go back to a layer that works for you and then start at that point. Why not? It's your trick. Do what you want. So anyway, that's one thing that I thought of as I've kind of examined this whole index conversation that's been going on. So without carrying a very thick index, if you ever would. Now, I'm not likely to carry this. I made this. It's a very nice index, but I can't remember the last time I carried this and used it. Other than for making a video on here, or maybe doing a couple of demonstrations and testing for family or friends. So what do I do though? I am more likely to use a body index, right? The body index is the idea that you have multiple pockets and locations on your person. And because you have multiple locations, you can hide different groups in those locations. And from those locations, you have kind of a subsidiary index. So I might have 2 cards in a pocket here, 2 cards in a pocket here, 2 back here, 2 back here. If I have a jacket on, 2 here, 2 here. And I can, of course, choose between a front and a back card. So I've indexed 12 cards on me without having an index. And nobody knows from where I'm drawing anything, so I'm clean, right? There's an information gap. They name something, and if I draw something out, they don't know. It's not conceptually understood that I could have had multiple locations. Likewise, if I was going to palm something in, I've got a lot of opportunity to grab it from different locations. So a body index is what I'm more likely to do, and I have done that quite a bit with cards and with money, with change. So if I need to index currency to get to a proper number, I've done that before too. We've talked about clips as an index. I don't have any right here. But the same thing, I'm more likely to put groups of change in different pockets, and then you fiddle and you grab what you need out of one pocket ahead, and then you reach into the other pocket, grab what you need from there, take that out, and pretend to toss the change from one pocket into the other hand, where you make a summation of body index change. Simple. It's really simple, and it's hard to mess it up, right? But that's an idea too for the body index. But another index, 2 other indices that I use more than that is a wallet. Just the wallet as a form of body index. A wallet itself is an index. A wallet in its normal state is an index. You put cash here, you put cards here, you put a driver's license here, you might put an insurance card over here, right? You have other pockets for maybe separating money out. Oftentimes in a wallet, you'll have a separation in the middle for maybe certain bills on this side and receipts on that side or whatever. The wallet itself is an index, and the very idea of taking something out of a wallet that could be only one thing, like a lottery ticket, right, could be indexed within the wallet, and you have actually multiple outs there, but the assumption is that there's only one, that there wouldn't be more than one. The probability of the effect itself would indicate that you couldn't have more than one. And Colossal Killer works off of this, right? The old Kenton Nepper, and there's variations on how you do that. And I carry the Colossal Killer effect with just a 4 out. 4 card out, queen force 4 out. That's how I do it, and it fries every time, and it's direct. I don't have to use the one-off shtick, right? I can just do my equivocate over here and give some real choices, and then I have indexed in there 1 of 4 cards. But even within the index, I have a dollar bill index. It's actually an index made up of bills, which I got from... The name escapes me right now. Is it the Safwan paper? I think is what it was called. Oh, I feel terrible not remembering this name, and I don't want to re-record this. But I'll look up the name and I'll put it in the comment section below. And I feel bad not remembering. But if you know what I'm talking about, there is plans in a pamphlet written by a mentalist out there. Boy, I can't remember. Where he talks about creating an index from dollar bills. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And I carry that all the time. That's an index that I use in my wallet. It's just genius. The original design was for 8 outs. I carry it for 10. And I use it for pick 6, my own lottery ticket prediction. And I use a 10 out module for that. So that's how I've been carrying it for a long time now, since I released that. That's how I've settled on it. I found a game, state game, that fits that mode perfectly, and that's how I carry it. So an index that is using kind of ordinary objects that sits in plain sight within the wallet. So I love indices. I carry them. I do body indexes. I do a wallet as an index, and then I do a bill index within the wallet. Those work very well for outs for me. And they're in the open, right? They're just in the open. It's not some extra apparatus apart from the bill one. It's not an extra piece of apparatus that I have to carry. I don't necessarily have to be I don't have to give up anything in my everyday carry, my keys, my phone, my wallet. It's just the normal things I carry on me, but I've got magic set up within those things. And then just pockets, just having pockets and maybe change in them. So those are my feelings on the index for the common magician. Just a little more on that. Some strategies for not necessarily carrying a whole deck, but having the effect of one. I mean, I kind of like talk about compromise, being compromised. Talk about compromise. I think that's a good compromise, is just using another layer of method, magical method in equivocate or force, narrowing force, and then using a more foolproof kind of index, like a body index or a wallet, to organize those possible outs. And then I can feel secure, I can feel safe, and I can know that I will do the effect well without messing it up. And that's how we like to roll here. So anyway, just a few thoughts on it. And don't get caught up in all the logical fallacy out there. If anything, feel free to take people to task on some of the harsher things they're saying, to lower the temperature a little bit on some of this kind of silly stuff. Anyway, product looked good. Otherwise, it looked really. I'll say this: when I heard about it, what it ended up being, and probably a lot of people were like this. What the thing ended up being was almost exactly what I imagined it should have been. Right when he said, "I'm indexing a full deck," and it's easier than other indices to get to. I thought, well, this must be a tiered and separated index, which is what that bill index is, by the way, the dollar bill one, but for billets. It's the same kind of design. So I thought, well, that must be what it is. That's all it could be, and that is what it is. And it looks like a really interesting design. And I'm sure a lot of people, I think a lot of workers, people that really do a lot of palming and do a lot of card magic on the street in an impromptu settings, I think there's going to be people that really have a lot of value for this. And for them, they would have paid double the amount that it's being sold for to have a product like that, even if it comes unglued in a couple places. I mean, just to have that design in hand and put it to use. I can see that there's probably a really good market out there for those people. Just, it probably isn't for me. So anyway, that's all I have on indexes. If that's something you're thinking about and you're not sure what to do with this product or any other product, or you've been wondering about indexes, or it's not something we talk about a lot here, those are my thoughts on it. So good luck with that. Happy magicking.